I'm Demethius Jackson, and you're listening to a reading of my book entitled The Realmsic Conquest, the Hero of Legend. Chapter 25. The night concealed the legionaries' arrival. As ghostly silhouettes, Thane and his men floated into the pumice path town as swiftly as their horses could gallop. Under normal circumstances, the general would have sped through a town such as this without giving it a second thought. But this wasn't a normal circumstance. A chance encounter with a few locals had directed the legionaries to this location. Since the rise of Damien, many poor layman communities in the northern lands sought refuge with the warlord. In return for protection, they provided information or donated what little they had to the legion. Therefore, it wasn't surprising to Thane that a number of the locals had traveled out of their way to report suspicious strangers who wandered into their town a few nights prior. Aside from it being Thane's duty to investigate, his instincts tingled with a force that almost made him anxious. Rarely did that happen. Their horses galloped through the mud-filled streets, splattering filth in every direction. The familiar stench of misery filled the general's nostrils and flooded his mind with horrible memories from his childhood. Quickly, he refocused his thoughts on the task at hand, reminding himself that the anger of his past now fueled his future. One of the locals rode with Thane. Locking her feet into his horse's stirrups and holding tightly to his waist, she guided the general and his men back to her town. Pulling on the reins, Thane slowed next to one of the wooden buildings near the center of town. Behind him, the other riders also slowed to a trot. Dismounting, Thane's feet sank several inches into the mud. A wave of annoyance surged through his body. The local woman, still upon the horse, glanced around the area and furiously shook her hands. No, we've stopped too short, she complained. We're still a few blocks away from that Annal's place. I know that, Thane dryly replied. How many entrances does the Annal have? The woman's contemplative gaze shot in the direction of the structure. Just the one, she eventually answered. The front? Yes, just the front. How many people are inside? Thane asked. 2. Definitely 2, she proclaimed, holding up 2 fingers. Thane reached into his belt pocket and pulled out several silver coins. The woman leapt from the horse at the sight of them, splashing even more mud in Thane's direction, which he dodged. For your continued loyalty, Thane said. He handed the woman the coins. She snatched them from his hands as though they might disappear if she didn't move fast enough. Clenching them in her fist, she ran away. The other legionaries dismounted as Thane approached them. He removed his sword from its sheath. The Annal is 2 blocks left and 1 block right from this location. You know what to do. Assume your attack formation and move out, Thane ordered. Swiftly, he and his soldiers broke into 3 pairs of 2 and trailed away in various directions. Their strategy this time was simple. Storm the building. Thane's heart pounded as his feet sloshed through the muck. Adrenaline coursed through his veins. Was Maebus in the building, or perhaps some other Realmsic noble? Turning the corner, the Annal's symbol of order came into view. The building looked to have 1 entrance, just as the local said. Running as fast as the mud would allow, Thane huffed the night air through his thick beard. His men suddenly appeared a few yards to his left and right. They approached the building entrance. Its double doors were heavy wood, save the large rectangular window set in the center. Thane focused on the metal portion of the door. The handle appeared to be weakened by years of rust. Run faster, he mentally commanded himself. Each second, Thane inched closer to the door. Only a few feet away now. He leapt from the ground, thrusting his feet before him. In one fluid motion, he kicked the doors wide open. The general landed on the floor hard and slid slightly on the slanted surface. He wasn't prepared for that. His side ached. Not so young anymore. His men filed in one after another, also stumbling to gain their balance. A heavy crash awoke Kelm out of his sleep. The noise of wood splintering and glass breaking echoed under the floor. What was that? Kelm asked, soaring to his feet. Startled also, Maebus sat up, bone straight. It came from downstairs. Before either could gain their composure, they heard the thunder of footsteps ascending the stairs. I'll fight them off, Kelm said as he rolled up his sleeves. I can help, Maebus clambered to his feet. How? You're going to kick them with your good leg? No, I'm fine. You've healed me well enough that I can use it. I'll not let you face these intruders alone. Now hand me my sword. Before Kelm could oblige, the first intruder appeared in front of them. Legionaries! Kelm exclaimed. The soldier's eyes grew wide with excitement. General Thane, he shouted. Maebus and the wizard are here. A huge, bearded warrior suddenly appeared atop the stairs. Panting, his deadly eyes focused on Maebus. I've got you now, Thane growled. The general charged Maebus, his arms outstretched like a bear, as though he would sweep him up and slam him to the ground. Sparkles shot from Kelm's feet as he ran and slid across the tilted floor. Directing unseen energy from his rotating arms, he lifted a massive bookshelf and flung it across the room into Thane, knocking him off his feet. Several other legionaries suddenly appeared with weapons drawn, blocking the stairway. Kelm stepped forward. He stretched out his hand, summoning Maebus's battle sword so that it sailed across the room and smacked into his palm. At that moment, Thane staggered from under the broken bookshelf, shaking his shaggy head. His smile struck Kelm as a fox poised outside a henhouse. Thane seemed to be enjoying this. Breathing heavily, weapons drawn, the legionaries surrounded Kelm and Maebus within a semicircle on one side of the room. The wizard pushed Maebus behind him, using his battle sword like a wand to wave at Thane and the soldiers. Stay back, he demanded. Thane took a single step closer. Give me the Realmsic crystal, he said slowly and calmly. Kelm shook his head, pointing the sword tip at Thane. We don't have it, he denied in a dry, raspy voice. Don't lie to me, wizard, Thane said, taking another step closer. Tension was building like a storm cloud filling the room. Kelm's head pounded in time with his heart in response to the rising pressure. In front of them, Thane and the legionaries inched ever closer. Behind Kelm and Maebus was a second-story window. There's no way out of here, Thane continued. Give me the Realmsic crystal, and I'll let you keep your lives. The odds were against them, Kelm realized. He wasn't much of a fighter, and a magical blast strong enough to take out the legionaries could also collapse the building. Kelm exhaled in frustration. He turned his head slightly, taking in Maebus, whose face beaded with fevered sweat. I'm sorry, Maebus, Kelm said. His friend's features tightened into a befuddled glare. What are you... Kelm grabbed hold of his robe and started pushing him backwards. Kelm, what are you doing? Maebus exclaimed, stumbling backwards. I'm sorry, Maebus. This is going to hurt. A lot. Kelm screamed as he shoved Maebus out of the second-story window, letting the momentum carry him after his friend. A cacophony of breaking metal, wood, and glass shattered the air as Maebus and Kelm fell like two stones sailing from a cliff. There wasn't even enough time to scream. Kelm shifted his weight as they fell, so that his back was towards the ground and would impact first. His maneuver cushioned Maebus's fall when they landed with a tremendous splat in the thick mud. The impact knocked the wind out of them both, but it only took a second to catch their breaths. Completely caked in mud, they pulled themselves from the ground. Maebus's battle sword had landed next to them, brown and slick in the muck. Kelm grabbed it. Come on, he shouted to Maebus, wrapping his friend's arm around his own neck. Together, they began running away from the animal. From the upper window, he heard Thane's gruff voice. After them! Kelm glanced backwards and saw several legionaries leap from the window. They're coming after us, Kelm exclaimed, shouldering Maebus's arm, supporting him as they ran. We're going... that way, Kelm said, pointing towards the nearby woods. But the pumice path is in the opposite direction, Maebus protested. There are probably more legionaries patrolling it now. We'd do better in the woods. There they are! Get 'em! The yell sounded close behind them. Ahead several yards, Kelm was astonished to see a crowd of locals running towards them. He estimated a mob of at least 30 people. Dressed raggedly, carrying shovels, torches, and pitchforks, he could see the anger in their faces as they sloshed forward, thirsty for their blood. This can't be happening, Maebus exclaimed. This town must be filled with Damien supporters, Kelm rationed as they sloshed from their pursuers. Kelm and Maebus were outnumbered. They desperately maneuvered their way around the collection of buildings. The mud slowed their progress, making each step more difficult than the last. The sound of galloping horses roared behind them. Kelm turned to see General Thane thundering in their direction. Because his hands were being used to help Maebus walk, he was unable to defend them. The wizard became anxious. Come on, Maebus, he yelled, stealing another quick look over his shoulder. I'm trying, Kelm. His voice was strained with pain and exertion. Well, hop, man! Get to the woods. He's gaining on us. Maebus sprang forward on one foot. As the edge of the woods came within reach, the angry mob stormed behind, closing the distance between them. They stumbled their way through the first line of trees, frantically searching for an escape route, but the darkness of night prevented them from seeing too far ahead. Racing through shrubbery, their path was unexpectedly blocked by a towering figure. "Halt!" the figure shouted in a deep male voice. But it was too late for them to stop their momentum, and they crashed into him. Quicker than either could react, the figure grabbed them both. "I've got you," he said. "Let us go," Kilm demanded angrily. But the man stood over 7 feet tall and was exceptionally strong. He began sprinting away, with Maebus tucked under one long arm and Kilm under the other. They struggled against their captor, but to no avail. The man moved past trees and bushes as though he knew the placement of everything surrounding him. Eventually, the sound of their pursuers slowly trailed off into the distance. Leaping down the edge of a low cliff, the man landed hard upon a collection of leaves below. Kilm and Maebus were then released from his grip. "Shh," he whispered to them, with a finger over his lips. He pressed his back flat against a large natural crevice. Kilm and Maebus stood completely still as they listened carefully to the sound of approaching voices. Together, the three waited, concealed beneath the ledge of rock as they overheard their pursuers pass by. It took several minutes for the voices to fade away once again. The man peeked his head above the cliff and carefully scanned the road to verify the coast was clear. "Come on, I'll lead you to safety," he said. "We're not going anywhere with you," Kilm exclaimed. The towering man shifted his body to face them. He arched his back to be somewhat at eye level with Kilm, who reflexively stepped back. "Look," the man began, "I didn't save you only to turn you in." After a silent moment, he nodded, gesturing for Kilm and Maebus to follow him. Maebus glanced sidelong at Kilm. "Do you have a better plan?" "Nope," Kilm shrugged. "Neither do I." "Lead the way, sir," Maebus said. Together, the three moved stealthily through the woods. Kilm was a bit unnerved by the man's unusual height. He seemed almost as tall as a tree. The man whispered that sound traveled farther at night. Therefore, they needed to move carefully as not to create ripples through the forest that could potentially expose their location to the pursuers. For hours, they trekked through the darkened mountain woods. Every several meters, the man would double back and sweep leaves across their footprints to cover their tracks. After traveling a great distance away from the town, the man finally came to a stop. "I think we'll be safe here," he said, plopping down upon the dirt. Maebus took a seat also to rest his leg. Kilm listened to the sounds of the distant crickets. From the thick trees, he gazed upon the moon and the stars shining above them, which provided the only means of light. Under the cover of several large trees, the man curled up for the night. "I suggest you boys get comfortable and try to get some rest," he said, settling his head into his bent elbow. "We're going to be here until morning." Who are you?" Kilm asked. "Right now, I'm your best friend," the man replied. "Better get some rest now, because tomorrow, you two are on your own."